Yeah. Yeah, shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds of scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like towers. Ride the wave, the fame, flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gamble, and hustle, money moves so gritty. Cashing tickets every Friday, life looking pretty. Ride the wave, feel the rush, hit your game. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit bangers, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings, claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets, feel.
On a suddenly not so casual Friday in October, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 6. Friday, October 4th, 2024. The Shark and the Gun right here live on Sharky Waters Nation. Come on in, chat. Come on over to YouTube. Talk to us. We'll talk to you. We got data. We got plays. Guns, what's going on, brother?
Yes, sir. It is week 6 of college football, and we have the plays that pay the bills. Make sure you get into the chat and talk to us, and I'll pull you guys up, and we will want to address you. But we have plenty of plays on what is considered the unofficial bye week of college football, especially not a lot of big matchups. However, there is money to be made in the crumbs, and that's what we're going to be doing on this show. Shark, I'm ready to do it, and I think we have a play for Friday, don't we?
I saw somebody in the chat say, please talk Cuse at UNLV. He must have read our mind because we are opening the broadcast tonight in Las Vegas. The Gun loves Las Vegas, lived there for a while. No bias here, however. UNLV -6 official.
Yeah, we have Syracuse going on the road to go face UNLV, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada, 9 p.m. kickoff on Friday on the East Coast. And we have a Cuse team, 3-1 on the year, plus 11-point differential, plus 78 net yard average on the year. Then we look at UNLV coming off a conference win versus Fresno State, plus 104 net yards. They have a plus 31-point differential, plus 118 net yard average on the year. When we look at the controversy that happened with UNLV last week, with Matt Sluka leaving the program, not getting paid enough, we have the emergence of a new quarterback, a quarterback that I love. It is my GOAT. Has Malik Williams stepped in, and the offense immediately improved. He went 13 for 16, 182 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 0 INTs. He also rushed for 120 rushing yards and 1 touchdown, 9.9 yards per carry. This Rebel team is in good hands on the offensive side of the ball. And then, of course, we look at UNLV run-first offense, but they use the pass as a complement, at least for this year. 283 rushing yards per game, 5.7 yards per carry this season. And then we look at Cuse, exposed on the run game this season. 6.5 yards per carry given up to Ohio, 4.7 yards per carry given up to Georgia Tech, 5.4 yards per carry given up to Stanford. Cuse is ranked 119th in the country in opposing rush yards per carry, 94th in opposing rush yards per game. Then this will be Cuse's first road game of the season, so there's a disadvantage there knowing they've played in the Orange Dome in Syracuse for most of the season. Now they have to go on the road and go to the West Coast for this game on a Friday night. Going to be a tough spot for them. Also, just look at UNLV, 11-1 ATS versus non-conference opponents dating back to 3 seasons ago. And then Cuse is 2-7 ATS as a single-digit dog, and 1-6 ATS as on a 1-6 ATS run as an away dog. So UNLV seems to be stepping into their form here. Comfortable with the offense. It seems like the team loves this kid Haj running the offense, and I love him too. I think he's a better quarterback than Sluka was, and I think UNLV will dominate here versus a non-conference opponent like they have historically. So UNLV is the play. Get it at -6. Get it at -6.5. Get it at -10. UNLV is going to win this game all the way.
Love it. And let's dominate. Going to tomorrow, first play, a collaboration. Take notice here. 12 o'clock, high noon in Chapel Hill. Buying Pittsburgh on the road at -2.5. And when I started looking at this game earlier, I was quickly reminded last week, UNC covered a game in Duke where I had Duke. I took a loss, but I think this is a great spot to sell a UNC team that completely melted that game up 20-0 in the third quarter. And this is what we talk about psychologically. Where do bounce backs usually come? When you get blown out. You didn't have a lot of energy. You didn't exert a lot of energy. You got insulted. Not when you gave an A-plus effort against your arch crosstown rival, cross-state rival, and gave it back late. This could take on funeral vibes. And speaking of funeral vibes, go through UNC this year on their third-string quarterback, Jacoby Criswell. 2-0 ATS on the road. Covered the opener at Minnesota. 0-3 ATS at home against incredibly lackluster Charlotte, FCS, NC Central, and I think most notably giving up 53 first-half points 2 weeks ago to James Madison. Talk about Pittsburgh here very briefly. Freshman quarterback Eli Holstein, 6'4", 225, a specimen running a 4-0 straight-up campaign, only non-cover on the road. So I said to myself, is this team just the home team in Acrisure Stadium in Pittsburgh? What happened in Cincinnati that day? That was a look-ahead game to the backyard brawl the following week. And Cincinnati came out and hammered Pittsburgh before getting backdoored in the fourth quarter. And this is a double revenge game for Pittsburgh. Back-to-back blowouts against UNC. UNC 42-24 2 years ago. UNC 41-24 last year, almost an identical score. Identical quarterback, Drake May, now on the Patriots. Heavy line here. UNC on the road last year was a heavy -6.5. This should come up to 10, not have the Pitt favored on the road. I have Pitt to win this game by 13 points on the average and sending it to the gun, a collaboration play.
Yeah, when you look at UNC, we got to look at what they want to do. They want to establish the run. They have a 5.3 yards per carry on the ground game, 6.3 yards per carry at home. However, in conference, a little bit different story. Their average drops down to 3.9 yards per carry, and they're going against a Pittsburgh team that can stop the run. They hold their opponents to 2.8 yards per carry in the ground game and has yet to have a team surpass 4.1 yards per carry in a game this season against their defense. And then we got to look at the situation here. Yeah, 2x revenge spot here for Pitt. Losing to UNC in 2022 and 42-24 as 3-point home dogs and 41-24 last year as 7.5-point road dogs. Now Pitt is favored here in this spot. Big line swing from game A to game B to game C. And then we have UNC has not been a home dog since 2020, folks. And I think that was against my Irish, if I have to go back and look at that one. But this is a different spot here for the Tar Heels. And then look at Pitt, 9-2 ATS is an away favorite versus conference opponents since 2019. 11-2 ATS is an away favorite in all away games. I see no value in taking UNC. That's pretty much where I'm standing with this one. Their only wins were against Minnesota, Charlotte, and NC Central. That's it. This team is a falling knife. This is not a backable team right now. And this Pitt team statistically looks great on the defensive side. They look great on the offensive side. And I think they get it done here in the 2x revenge spot. So give me Pitt -3 plus 100 Jews, -2.5. I think you get right now. Go grab it. Pitt all the way in this game.
Yeah, as we said, we think this is probably a double-digit win. Let's dominate. Staying at 12 o'clock, going to College Station, Texas. Maybe surprisingly to some, I'm not taking Texas A&M here in a contrarian spot. I'm buying low on Missouri in the first half, specifically at +0.5. And whenever I talk about these first half plays, I always go to the line split because it's very transparent as to how books are weighting one half versus the game. This is a game graded at -2.5 for Texas A&M, only a half for the first half. And you look at what's going on here. A&M has not performed well this year at home in a raucous stadium. Surprisingly, did not cover the opener in the first half against Notre Dame. We're laying some juice there. 6-6 tie. I was losing that wager. I was unimpressed. Slightly later on, week 4 against Bowling Green, 13-3 first half, -11.5. Another non-cover against lackluster from the MAC. And you go to the Missouri side of this game, it's a great spot to buy the first half. Missouri's coming off of 2 consecutive home non-covers in the first half against upstart scrappy Bill O'Brien-led Boston College in week 3. And last week, week 4, pre-bye, a real lackluster effort in the first half, down at the half to Vanderbilt at home. So they come out flat twice at home, get a bye week to totally rejuvenate their energy. And they get to return to where they played spectacular football last year in conference, going 4-0 ATS in the first half on the road in conference play last year with potential NFL quarterback Brady Cook at the helm. This is the same basic team. That mentality will continue as a road first half warrior spot. Incredibly impressive stuff, most notably a 10-10 tie last November in Georgia. Obviously, Georgia, elite quality football. I think Brady Cook comes out angry, rejuvenated, refreshed, and catches Mike Elko and these boys in another snooze spot early at noon by Missouri in the first half at +0.5 1 unit. Staying at high noon yet again, another great buy low. Louisville off of a non-cover. The gun bought Notre Dame last week correctly. Now he's buying Louisville against an SMU team with a sketchy coaching situation and having underperformed egregiously in their only road game in week 1 at Nevada. Guns picks, Louisville -6.5.
Yeah, you got Louisville coming into this spot 3-1 on the year, coming off that loss versus Notre Dame last week, plus 26-point differential, plus 204 net yard average. Then you have SMU 4-1 on the year, off a win versus FSU, 42-16 with a plus 73 net yard average for that game. With SMU, you said it here, you said it great, Shark. One road game this season in week 0 versus Nevada. In that game, they were down 17-10 in the half and was down 24-13 after 3 quarters before making that comeback in the 4th. So not familiar territory here for the Mustangs. And then SMU has put up big numbers this season on the offensive side of the ball, especially running the ball, 206 rushing yards per carry, 4.7, rushing yards per game, 4.7 yards per carry. But look at the defenses that SMU has faced. We're talking about Nevada, ranked 88th as far as defense in Massey Weight rankings. And then you have Houston Christian, not a dominating team. They're in the FCS. BYU ranked 28th in defense of Massey rankings, and they were held to 15 points, 261 yards of total offense in that game, lost 18-15. So that gives you an indicator. If you have a good defense, you can handle this SMU team. And then TCU ranked 67th in defense. Then you have FSU ranked 21st in defensive Massey rankings. However, we know who FSU is, a falling knife, big mess in that program. It is unbelievable what is going on there with the Seminoles. Then you have Louisville ranked 20th in defense in terms of Massey rankings. And so this will be the best defense all season that SMU has seen. And then Louisville kind of performed pretty well against Notre Dame in that game. They only put up 139 yards. Notre Dame only put up 139 yards, a total better than their season average in that game. I'm sorry, 139 yards below their season average in that game as far as their offense is concerned. And ND held to 132 yards below their offensive season average. So, I mean, what I'm saying here is while the score tells you one story, Notre Dame's offense underperformed from their season average against Louisville in that game. Of course, you got to look at Louisville is 11-2 ATS as a home favorite since 2022. 11-3 ATS as a home favorite versus conference opponents. 6-2 ATS versus off a straight up loss. And then SMU on the other side, different story. 2-7 ATS as an away dog. 1-6 ATS as an away dog versus conference opponents since 2019. So I just think Louisville is in a come-up spot. They played very well on the road versus South Bend. Now they come to their comfort level at home, and they're going against an SMU team that, quite frankly, has underperformed in a lot of situations this year, but especially on the road, and they're facing the best defense they've seen all year. So Louisville is the spot. Give me Louisville -6.5 as the play.
Love that play. Almost got there myself. All intelligent analysis. My next play, 3:30 p.m., William Bryce Stadium in Columbia, South Carolina, taking Ole Miss in the first half at -4.5. And one of the noteworthy points this week, Gunn said this is a bit of a bye week, a lot of huge in-conference lines. We're expecting a lot of blowouts this week before you get a lot of rivalries in the next 8-9 weeks. But you also get a lot of nice sell high, buy low spots for top 10 teams this week. There was a lot of noteworthy outcomes last week, and one of them was Ole Miss taking a home loss to Kentucky as a 15.5-point favorite. We know Kelly in Vegas loved that. She probably had UK money line there. But staying the course, this is a great spot to buy Ole Miss and senior quarterback Jackson Dart on the road in a bounce back. They came out flat that last week. They will not come out flat on the road. And the line number is telling you an incredible story. On FanDuel earlier, I actually saw this line at -6.5 for the first half on a -8.5 game. 4.5 is on DraftKings. But when you see 6.5 crossed with 8.5, that's 76.7%. That's unheard of in college football. Literally unheard of. And it's telling you exactly what Ole Miss did in their only road game this year at Wake Forest. 23-6, first half cover. And as I mentioned with Missouri, coming off a couple lackluster performances and a bye week as a buy low, I think it's a great spot to sell South Carolina early. South Carolina is playing their third consecutive home game. They came out hot against LSU in week 3, covered the first half outright, 24-16. Came back week 4 against the MAC, Akron, another blowout, 22-7. Key point there, you stay at home. You don't want a bye week when you have full momentum. They had a bye last week. Now they got to come back for one home game before they go to Alabama next week. So this is really disruptive. If you have a great flow, you don't want to take time off. It's like we always say, or many people say, you're in Vegas at the craps table. You don't walk away from a heater. That's basically what they did last week. And you go through the only other home game they did have this year off a previous break. It was week 1. And I think the psychology is real. Coming off a break, they won't perform. Terrible effort that week against Old Dominion. 13-7, lackluster, didn't cover the game. I think Ole Miss blows them out early and often. First half, -4.5, 1 unit. Staying at 3:30, going Sunbelt football. Marshall at home, 2.5, 3, fading App State, the notorious App State, off a bye, a cancellation. Team is sketchy. Guns seems to have figured them out. The home team at -2.5.
Yeah, it's the battle of the coal miners, the blue collar, as they say. These guys are going to be riled up for this one. App State versus Marshall in Jones C. Edwards Stadium, Huntington, West Virginia. 3:30 is the kick on the East Coast. We have a Marshall team that's sitting here 2-2 on the year with a +9 net yard average, -1 point differential. And then we have App State 2-2 on the year. However, -16 net yard average, -13 point differential. Granted, they played some pretty good teams and got beaten bad in 2 spots. We're talking about South Alabama and Clemson. And then App State just struggles stopping the run. That's been their biggest problem. They give up 7.4 yards per carry in their game versus South Alabama and 5.8 yards per carry on average to their opponents this season. And then you have Marshall, wants to run the ball. That's it. That's their bread and butter. They have a great star in the backfield in AJ Turner, who runs 12.6 yards per carry this season. And then Marshall runs the ball on average as a unit, 5.4 yards per carry and 6.7 yards per carry at home. And then Marshall has their struggles stopping the run too. But look at the teams who they have played. Ohio State ranked 4th in the country in rush yards per carry, 6.6 yards per carry. Virginia Tech, who's ranked 34th in the country in rush yards per carry at 5 yards per carry. And then App State is ranked 84th in the country in rush yards per carry at 3.8. So what I'm saying is this is a step down in class than what Marshall has already seen this year. And then you got to look at the revenge spot here for Marshall, right? They lost 31-9 last season to App State as 3-point road dogs. And now they're favored at home, three points in this spot. And then, of course, the home team is 5-0 straight up, 4-1 ATS when these teams meet. App State is 1-5 ATS since 2022 with extra rest over their opponent because they're coming off a bye. Then Marshall's just the better team, in my opinion. They've played a tougher schedule, and I love schedule advantages, especially early in the season. We're going to take advantage here with App State going on the road, coming off the bye, going to be flat and rusty, and then Marshall is looking for blood from what happened to them last season, getting crushed 31-9. So Marshall's the play for me. I got it at -2.5. You can take it at whatever number. Marshall will dominate this game.
Next play, 3:30 again. Not a collaboration play, but we have a side and a total in this game. East Carolina, back in the summer, I never thought I'd be playing this team every week, but here we are, week 6, October 5th, in Charlotte, taking the over at 46.5, and really great data stuff here. ECU is 1-4 versus the over, so they haven't scored a lot, but they're 0-3 at home, 1-1 on the road, and a couple of these unders have been absolutely egregious. 21-19, 829 yards in the game, just constant turnovers. 30-20 against UTSA, went slightly under 52.5, 797 yards. Go to their road totals, highest one of the year, week 4 at Liberty, did get over 54.5, 35-24, and the under was another outlier. ECU had 466 total yards at Old Dominion. This team can move the ball with ex-Miami Florida quarterback Jake Garcia. And you go to this matchup specifically, last year was actually the first time that these teams had ever played each other in this conference reconstruction era. The game did finish 10-7. 10-7. Feels like Bears-Packers 1956 here. The total was 38.5, and now it moves up to 46.5. And they're telling you a very specific story. Charlotte does not play any defense. They're 3-1 versus the over last 4. They're 1-0 versus the home over with this young quarterback, Deshaun Purdy. And in week 3, they went over at home 27-26, 53 out of 46.5, the same exact number against FCS Gardner Webb. And I was talking to Guns before the broadcast, and I said, if Gardner Webb can put 26 points on these guys, and ECU is averaging over 400 yards a game in the last 4 weeks, ECU is going to light these guys up for 40-plus points. I like the over. Guns agrees. ECU -8.
Yeah, I think ECU is the spot here, knowing that you're seeing the progression, and like Shark alluded to, the points are coming up because that air raid that coming from the coordinator from Ole Miss is starting to click in with this team. ECU is 3-2 on the year. They're coming off a 30-20 win versus UTSA. Charlotte is 2-3 on the year, coming off a weird win, and I'll talk about that in a second, over Rice. Losing the net yardage battle, however, -159 net yards, and they had a -1 turnover ratio. Now, Charlotte is 2-3, like I said, on the year, but their wins were against Gardner Webb and last week against Rice by 1 point. In the Rice game, Rice had the ball inside the red zone for 3 possessions. Guess how many points they got? 0.0 points. 2 turnovers on downs, 1 missed field goal at the end of the game. That is the deciding factor why that team lost. And of course, Charlotte has lost the net yardage battle in all 5 of their games this season. They have a -136 net yard average on the year. Just Charlotte's defense is just not good. They give up 454 yards of total offense to their opponents, 5 yards per carry on the ground in the rush game, 264 passing yards per game. And then you got to look at the revenge factor here. I mean, like Shark said, last year, 2023, they lost 10-7 at 6.5-point dogs. That is ECU was a home favorite in that spot as 6.5-point home favorites. And then you're seeing the line sit at -8, -8.5 as road favorites? Huh? So you mean the line went up 2.5 points from game A to game B, but the flip wasn't from road to home. It was from home to road. That is a key indicator, in my opinion, that this is an ECU spot. Also, look at Charlotte, 5-11 ATS. It's a single-digit dog since 2021. 3-7 ATS as a home dog versus conference opponents. I just think ECU is the better team. They're the team on the come-up. If they can get the offense clicking on this one, this team is going to be dangerous down the road in conference. So, yeah, I'm going to be on the Pirate ship once again. ECU -8.5 is the play.
Next play, 4:15, SEC Network in Nashville. I was watching ESPN before, and I saw the gambling expert on ESPN debating Stephen A. Smith and Mad Dog. Stephen A. Smith said there's no way Alabama does not cover this spread. We disagree vehemently. Official play, Vanderbilt plus 23.5. And you go specifically to last week. For those of you guys who didn't watch it, I'm sorry you didn't watch it. Go watch it again on replay overnight. That was one of the best college football games I've ever watched. Georgia at Alabama. Georgia's down 28-0 and comes all the way back to take the lead before Jalen Milroe connects for a 75-yard touchdown pass in the closing seconds. And the point there, psychologically, that was a Super Bowl type of game. Arch rival, in conference, the type of game where when you win, unavoidably, I don't care how well coached you are, you're going to let down. And you're looking at a great spot to buy Vanderbilt, an incredibly upstart Vanderbilt team with Diego Pavia. For those of you guys who don't recognize that name, Diego Pavia played for New Mexico State last year. New Mexico State was notoriously awful in their D1A schedule going back about a decade until last year, where they did finish 10-4 straight up, mostly because Diego Pavia was great. And I was looking at the calendar before. I didn't know exactly how the transfer portal worked, how this kid ended up in Vanderbilt. But actually, last year, late season, New Mexico State did go on the road and beat Auburn 31-10. So this kid was real last year. He's real this year. And this coach, Clark Lee, Guns probably remembers that name. Defensive coordinator with Notre Dame, 2018 to 2020. But I think even more importantly, fullback for Vanderbilt, 2002 to 2004. Think about the mentality of a fullback. It's pure physicality and grit. And this guy has quickly reversed this program from an absolute bottom feeder to hyper competitive this year. This team is 2-0 ATS at home. Beat Vatech as a significant dog in the opener. Backed it up with a blowout of FCS Alcorn State, so they didn't let down. Took a road loss at Georgia State before an incredibly representative effort, a double overtime loss at number 7 Missouri before a bye week. So again, here's the bye week playing in our favor now. Back-to-back road losses, an excruciating one, week off, reset, totally refreshed, and catching Alabama in this brutal letdown spot. And final point on this, you want to talk some historical data here? The last 2 times Bama played Vanderbilt, 59-0, 55-3. And in the most recent matchup 2 years ago, Bama was favored at home 38.5. And now they're only sitting at 23 or 23.5. Based on the way we look at lines, this game is graded to be inside of 17 points. And I think, truthfully, this could be closer than 17 points. I think this letdown is that big. And I think what you saw Georgia do in an uninspiring game on the road at Kentucky back in week 3, Georgia only beat Kentucky 13-12. So these teams, top SEC teams, championship teams, are very capable of laying road eggs to teams that are lower level SEC, well coached, play good defense, have that great mentality, and this is their Super Bowl. Bama played their regular season Super Bowl last week. Now Vanderbilt, off a break and a bye, has their Super Bowl. This could be a very, very close game. Classic pros versus Joes. Stephen A. says a blowout's coming. I think a tight one. Guns, any comments?
No, I agree 100% on that one. I think this is a Vandy spot. When you got a team that coming off a big win like that, that's like a big Super Bowl type of win, that mentality of you're boasting. And from a public perspective, the mentality of the over boasting is, oh, Bama's never going to lose again. Bama's going to crush everybody. No. Bama gets up when they need to get up. But that's kind of how these teams works. And Chuck alluded to it. I mean, you saw the flattest of flat spots when Georgia had to go play Kentucky. Sometimes teams are just not up for certain type of situational plays and certain games in this year because it's a long season. So they're not going to give their best effort all the time. And with Vandy's like underlining, I mean, they know that Bama's good. They know that they have the capability of any year to compete with this team. And I think if there's any spot to be jumping on the Vandy train, let's jump on it now and go take that the plus points on that one for sure. It's the only way to go.
Without question. And as I mentioned, this week is defined by buy lows and sell highs. You want to buy Georgia this week, particularly in the first half. You want to sell Alabama. You want to buy Ole Miss. And our last collaboration play of this broadcast, huge stuff here. A rematch of last year's national championship game, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, Husky Stadium, Washington, minus 120 on the money line. I'll throw it to the gun for opening comments.
Yeah, it's weird that you see a unranked favorite going against a top 10 team like Michigan. And it's a weird spot, but hell, I'm going to go with it and take the Huskies here. You got the Huskies 3-2 on the year, plus 220 net yard average, plus 13 point differential. They're 4-1, plus 4, but look at the loss they had. They lost against Rutgers last week. And when you break down that loss, Washington dominated the game. They had a plus 220 net yard average in that game. They had 69 yards worth of penalties versus 31 yards for Rutgers. A little bit of a Sopranos down there in New Jersey, I think. Paying off the refs? Maybe. We'll see about that one. But 8 out of their 11 drives ended in Rutgers territory. They had 2 drives end on turnover on downs. One of those drives ended on the Rutgers 2-yard line. Trying to do a little too much riverboat gambling instead of taking the field goal. And they also had 3 missed field goals, so probably right decision to go for it on 4th down. Didn't trust their kicker. Rutgers, only 4 drives in Washington territory. 3 of those were touchdowns. So they capitalized when they had the ball across the 50, and they took advantage of it, and that was the deciding factor in that game. This was Washington's first road game of the year, however. That's why I liked Rutgers in that game. It was a primetime game on a Friday night, and then they had Michigan on deck in a revenge situational spot. Of course, a lot of that team's not there, including the coaching staff, but I digress. Still a motivational factor for the next game. And when we look at Michigan, we say it all the time, one-dimensional offense. They have Alex Orji as their quarterback behind center. If you want to hear one-dimensional, look at these stats. He had 32 passing yards versus USC and 86 passing yards last week versus Minnesota. So making that switch is just run. They might as well do the triple option if they're going to run offenses like that. Of course, Washington has been very solid on the defensive side of the ball, holding their opponents to 250 yards of total offense per game, 38.7 yards per carry, 45.8% pass completion rate, and they have an 8.3% sack rate, so they can get to the quarterback and disrupt them. And then the offense for Washington can beat you in both ways, the run or the pass. They average 5.3 yards per carry on the ground, 74.8% pass completion rate, 296 passing yards per game, and their O-line only gives up a 3.7% sack rate. That's going to be key versus this Michigan defense that's going to be coming on the road. And like I said, Michigan's first road game of the year. They played 5 home games in a row. And now we're in week 6, and you're getting your first road game of the year. And that road game is on the West Coast. Travel is going to be cold, maybe rainy. Who knows? I haven't looked at the weather report. However, scenario is not working for Michigan in this spot. And of course, you have the scenario of unranked home favorite versus a ranked dog on the road. It's always a spot. We always go with the unranked home favorite. And I'm going to be taking it here with Washington. And I'm going to take the spread and throw it out the window, because all we need is the money line. The money line's at minus 120. Let's take it. Washington, money line, minus 120 is the play.
Yeah, Guns said basically everything I'm going to say. I just want to emphasize a couple points. This is mind-blowing scheduling in 2024 to find these teams with 5 consecutive home games to open. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. It's totally new, and it really makes a team's potential output very clustered and one-sided, because it's such advantageous scheduling. But even when you go through those 5 games, Michigan is 4-1 straight up. They are only 2-3 ATS in those home games. And I think when you really look at where they're trending in the last few games, they didn't play a particularly good game against Arkansas State, did not cover in week 3. Then they had a huge home win against USC in week 4, which the gun did have correctly. However, last week, they were a 10.5 point favorite against Minnesota. Didn't cover the spread, barely won the game 27-24. So this is what I see here. I see them peaking in this small window with the USC win, squeaking by last week against a team they play almost every year anyway. So it had legitimate rivalry to it. Now they go on the road, teetering on the edge of disaster. A revenge game from the national championship. Guns mentioned it. Obviously not the same players. Penix is not there. DeBoer is not there. Regardless, it still will be a huge talking point in the locker room. And I think more importantly, Washington Husky fans didn't change in the offseason. So this place, Husky Stadium, is going to be absolutely live at 4:30 Pacific. And just speaking on what Gunn said in terms of the bounce back, that game against Rutgers, I mean, I don't know what Schiano's doing, who he's potentially paying off or what's going on, but that was an egregious result. So not only will they be fired up in their home stadium against this opponent, it's a great bounce back for Washington. And in terms of the line, Michigan was -5.5 in the national title game, now a dog on the road. This does speak to a Washington win by 6 or 7. We think Washington wins by roughly a touchdown. Collaboration play, Washington on the money line, -120. My final play of the broadcast, another total, 8 o'clock in San Diego, taking the under between Hawaii and San Diego State in Mountain West Conference play at 48.5. The last couple of plays we discussed were buy lows and expected reversals. This is where I think in terms of what we're seeing from these teams this year will actually just continue. San Diego State is 3-0 versus the under last 3. They got shut out at home against Oregon State. Only 10 points on the road against Cal. 21 last week on the road at Central Michigan. Their only over came against an FCS team, which I don't think really applies here. I think even more specifically, against this opponent, Hawaii scores the ball well at home on the island, not when they travel to an earlier kick time, really an abstract environment for them on the continental United States. And even more specifically this year, Hawaii is actually averaging 35.5 points per game against FCS teams, including a 36-point output in their most recent home game against Northern Iowa. Against FBS teams, they're only averaging 13. Huge gap there. And just going through this matchup, third year in a row these teams played. Incredible polarization in terms of on the island or in San Diego. Go back to October 8th, 2022. Hawaii at San Diego State, 48.5, same line. 16-14 final. Last year, off that under at 48.5, books moved the line up to 53.5. For those of you guys who tailed last year, we had the over between these two teams in Hawaii because of that reaction to the under and the higher line. And it did finish at 41-34. So now off of that 75-point outcome, 53.5, books are moving it back down to the lowest we've seen of the 3, 47. And this correlates with everything I said. I have this game to be 40 points on average, maybe even less. By the under, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific in San Diego, 48.5. Big show this week, almost 40 minutes in the books. CFB Knowledge for College, Week 6. My top plays, Missouri in the first half, +0.5. Pitt -2.5, a collab with the gun. Ole Miss first half -4.5. ECU Charlotte over 46.5. Vanderbilt +23.5. Washington money line -120. Another collaboration with the gun. And as just discussed, Hawaii, San Diego State under 48.5. Guns additional plays. Primetime special Friday night. Buy it, live it, love it, and dominate it. UNLV -6. Louisville at noon, -6.5. Marshall, -2.5. And ECU, the side correlating to a ton of points, -8. It is an opportunity to dominate week 6, October 4th into October 5th, 2024. It is the Shark. It is the Gun. Knowledge for college. We appreciate you guys immensely. Sending you guys great vibes. Have a great weekend. We will be back here Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. for the NFL show. Guns, a pleasure as always. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, shout out to the chat. We got G Martinez, Bob the Condor Man in the building, saying deep, going down the board. Jeff Matthews, JRL52, of course, Kelly Vincenzo. Oh, joining us here, and everybody else in the beautiful chat. Everybody that's been watching this live, please like and subscribe to the Gunsmith channel, like and subscribe to the Sharky Water Station channel, and check us out on X, Guns Picks, and Shark in Sports 88 on X and all other social media platforms. And please check us out on Sunday at 10 a.m. for the extra points. We just cashed the side on Atlanta money line Thursday night football. So we are on a little bit of a show heater here, and we will continue to explode into the 2024 season. So check us out there. All right, that's going to do it here for the Knowledge for College Week 6 edition of College Football Show. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, let's keep dancing. Oh, bye. Yeah.